Goedenavond en welkom bij The Hard Sell, the programma waar de stokken is spoelen me raad ik terug. It's me again, Deal With It, with another special. Like my previous special is going to be,
Have a break.
This year, Eurovision is held in the Netherlands, and as you may already know, their public broadcasting system is the most complex in Europe, if not the world. The central federalized organization handles everything is the NPO, Nederlandse Publieke Omroep, or Dutch Public Broadcasting. And under their jurisdiction lies an entire alphabet's worth of actual broadcasting companies, some of which were set up as far back as the dawn of radio about 90 years ago. You got the VARA, the BNN, the AVRO, the TROS, the KRO, the NCRV, the VPRO, and several other letters. There are crazy mergers in the past few years, so for example we now have BNN VARA, and the AVRO and the TROS are now just the AVRO-TROS, which is actually quite a catchy name. In the past they used to be inclinated towards pillars of Dutch society. The VARA was a socialist network, for instance, and KRO was Catholic. These days only the evangelical EO is stuck to its founding principles. The VPRO used to be Protestant, and within just a few decades it became the oddball broadcaster, and so on. Aside from these, the NPO has a pair of task-based narrowcasters for uncool things like parliamentary coverage and edutainment. The NOS usually handles news and sport over its channels, and is also one of the handlers of the Eurovision Song Contest, together with the central organisation, the Avrotros. NTR handles educational and cultural programming, as well as housing some of the remains of certain old non-Christian, non-Catholic broadcasters. Got all that? Good. Because we get to the advertising agency, Stichting Ether Reclame, the foundation for ether advertising, or STARE for short. They're the company that sells the advertising space for all the public broadcasters in the Netherlands. They're best known for their mascot, Lukey the Lion, who arrived in 1972 when colour became a viable option, appearing outside of the adverts themselves. Created by Joop Geesink, the character became such an icon in the Netherlands that within a few years he started making a world tour with his animations. His most famous non-Dutch usage was on TF1, when the network was still run by the government. We in Portugal had him in the late 1980s, again between adverts on RTP1, but that didn't last long. The 5 stations made up Field Communications in the USA also adopted him, and he was also reportedly sold to SABC's TV1 in South Africa and television stations in Japan, assuming Japan was and still is interested in European exoticism, to the point where Lukey is even the mascot of the Dutch-themed Hoist and Bosch amusement park in Nagasaki. And of course, if you recall seeing the first episode of ITV in the face, he adopted by Westwood Television as a sort of secondary mascot, often appearing after the "Don't forget to switch off your set" announcement at close down, but with the STARE logo clearly visible.
And please don't forget to switch off your television sets and unplug them from the wall. Night night.
Thousands of animations were made in Lukey's over 3-decade lifespan. These were all stop-motion animations that required time, titanic patience, and skill. He even outlived his creator. Joop Geesink died in 1984 and his daughter took over. By the turn of the millennium, the newly formed Publieke Omroep wanted to give more identity to the TV channels rather than the narrowcasters, and the industrial production of such brake bumpers started to decrease over time. The first death knell for Lukey came in 2001 when the STARE, already with the new typeface and logo, replaced the opening and closing bumpers in favour of abstract animations tailored to each channel. Lukey was still seen between commercials until 2004 when they were like, "Hey advertisers, we don't want you to piss on our legacy, but since we have a competitive market with RTL and SBS at the other side, we'll stop using Lukey." He made a one-off comeback in 2019, and in March was announced that he will return for a test run in June, set for the European Championships, coincidentally in the year of the 70th anniversary of television in the Netherlands. If this run is successful, then Lukey will likely return. Except it won't be in stop motion because that costs extra nowadays. Also, CGI is as cheap as, something in Ghana. But anyway, the commercial break we're looking at today comes from the 10th of November 1998 from the youth-ish channel Nederland 3, before it became such, after a showing of A Fish Called Wanda and before the Tiener Journaal. We're now seeing a sign of Ster trying to get Lukey in with the times, as this hippie break bumper shows.
Hak heeft iets nieuws.
Vliegende schotels.
Ja.
Side note, I don't understand a lot of spoken Dutch, but my written Dutch is okay, so most of this ad break is mostly me just taking wild guesses what's being advertised based on the words seen on screen.
Nee, meneer De Haan, groenteschotels. Dat zijn gemengde groentes in een lekkere saus die je kunt gebruiken als basis voor bijvoorbeeld chili con carne. En nou hebben we iedereen die eraan heeft meegewerkt uitgenodigd om te komen proeven. En heren, smaakt het? Het smaakt.
Hack is basically one of those fruit and veggie companies. The product being advertised looks so much like sauce to me, with, I don't know, beans or whatever the hell they are. We also have them here in Portugal. The product's not Hack.
Dus u begrijpt, u moet ook de groenteschotel van Hak hebben.
Vliegende schotels.
Nee, dat zijn ze straks pas in de winkel. Meneer De Haan ziet ze een beetje vliegen.
And to be fair, this is just the first typically Dutch commercial we're going to see here. The lush green scenery, people in the middle of their lives, and holy Jesus, are these crop circles? Well, actually, as alien as you think. I guess that's how things are in the so-called Dutch Highlands, which is a relative term in itself.
Mijn favoriete schoonheidsproduct? Je zult verbaasd staan. Mijn shampoo.
It's the German superstar Claudia Schiffer. Claudia Schiffer. More like Claudia Schafford.
Ik kies voor de nieuwe L7 multivitamine shampoo van L'Oréal. Daar kan ik op vertrouwen.
I guess it's some kind of dubbed advert. I don't know if Claudia has a good Dutch proficiency in a country that tends to prefer subtitles, but let's just skip this theory. Here in Portugal and in Britain, actually, the product was and still named Elvive. However, to a good part of Europe, including its native France and even the Netherlands, it's called Elzev. And I was aware of that for the first time when I was 6 and we got a cable network that included TF1 in its lineup. I don't know the reasons for this variation, but think of the Unilever Heart brand. It's called Ola here. It's called Walls in the UK. Or think of Jith becoming Sif.
L7 multivitamines bevat een speciale verzorging met 3 vitamines die direct in het haar dringen en het van binnenuit gezond
Science.
houden.
3 vitamines voor drievoudig mooie haar. Nog nooit was mijn haar zo krachtig, zo zacht en zo glanzend. Precies zoals ik het wil.
Yeah, and keep calm. Hang on, I forgot I don't have enough jokes. Next ad.
L7 multivitamines van L'Oréal voor het allermooiste haar van de wereld.
Waarom L'Oréal? Omdat ik het waard ben. U toch ook?
It's another Kaiju commercial. The heart at the moment is hoping this will lead to a new Pavlov's Bell episode. And apparently that woman aged in a matter of seconds. Give her a stainless steel wig. That'll save her.
Is er dan echt niks meer echt?
So basically his breath stinks, and now we get to understand what's being advertised. Venco licorice.
Jawel, de nieuwe Venco dropstaaf.
Available in salty, coconut and English. Whatever that means. I never tasted licorice in my life. Just don't know why.
Echte drop voor de echte stevige trek.
Graag wijs ik je namens Free Record Shop op de verrassende voordelen.
Free Record Shop started life as a Dutch equivalent of Our Price in 1971, and by the time this outbreak was recorded, their business now included video games and cell phones in order to stay afloat. The brand wasn't exclusive to the Dutch world. They also operated in Sweden and Finland before selling their Scandinavian branches to GameStop. The Dutch chain went bankrupt in 2013. It was free in the sense of being independent. They still charged for the record.
Van Libertel Easy. Het handige van mobiel bellen is dat je overal bereikbaar bent. Maar het mooie van mobiel bellen met Libertel Easy...
This is apparently a joint collab between FRS and Dutch mobile network Libertel, months before they were bought out by Vodafone, who later decided it was impossible to own dozens upon dozens of telecom brands worldwide without having a unified brand. Easy was just some kind of prepaid plan that everyone and their pet Merboy were adopting.
Is dat je geen abonnementskosten hebt. Zo kom je dus nooit voor onaangename verrassingen te staan. En dat is zeer aantrekkelijk.
Secondary to the main objective of this ad is apparently a couple trying to fight for a cell phone, something you hardly see in this day and age. I was expecting a woman getting her vendetta. Vendetta, what is that? Some Italian vending machine? Vendetta, a vending machine with a vengeance. Yeah, I'm low on ideas. I just stole a joke from The Simpsons. Next ad.
En dat is een kans die ik nooit zou laten lopen.
We've got concerts, we've got hair products, licorice, prepaid plans, and now booze. Well, Dutch booze. We're well past the watershed and it's almost time for the 10 uur journaal.
NOS 10 uur journaal.
Is Joey the compulsive?
We don't know, but they have held it somewhere else, and so I think...
The premise of this ad. Two bored men aboard a communications satellite are practicing oddball child surfing, and this isn't the first time we've seen something like that. In the other end of the decade, we saw Tenants do the same with Neighbours, and then when you put the dish up, it just comes out to be in Italian.
It's the authentic Pilsner taste that makes Tennant's Pilsner good.
Ciao Marlene, come sta Muffy? Oh, la piccola mascalzona sta benone.
Struth, mi hanno appena detto di Muffy.
But not that good.
Then one of the astronauts plugs a signal off and this happens.
You are drinking ice cold glass of beer. Wake up! Wake up!
This is ground control. We have technical problem. We are getting you out. I repeat.
The moral of the story. Don't bring beer to a space station. And yeah, they added an unnecessary soundtrack to the Lukey stings that ran between commercials. A sign of things to come, I guess. These didn't even have a soundtrack.
Voor Libertel Easy mobiel bellen zonder abonnement ga je naar Free Record Shop.
Buy Easy! Only at Free Record Shop. Buy a card or your money back. 100% guaranteed freshness.
Geweldig. Bij elke gulden die je in de Fina-shop besteedt krijg je een PowerPoint.
Fina was actually Belgian and was standing on its last legs. Next year saw the company being bought out by the French giant Total.
En bij elke liter die je tankt krijg je er 2. Je krijgt zelfs PowerPoints bij een wasbeurt.
I'll bet that when you heard PowerPoint, you started thinking about corporate slideshow software. Damn Microsoft. No wonder his wife left him. Anyway, this is a mileage program, sort of like BP Premier Plus. The main emphasis is this poor man being beaten by an invisible boxer with Fina gloves.
Als je er 500 hebt gespaard, krijg je er 50 gratis bij. PowerPoint van Fina, dat is voor z'n incasseren. En toch winnen op punten, hè?
Oh great, first we've encountered giant monsters, now we've got a crappy CGI alien. Even special effects in Ghana are better. Oh wait, it isn't even 3D, but it still emanates the essence of E.T. Another candidate for Pavlov's bell.
Bij de kerk linksaf en dan loop je vanzelf tegenaan.
Curious creatures come to the library. A sort of stuff advert. What are they promoting? Aliens? Mystic dragons after consuming LSD? Mermaids and mermen? No. Obviously the point is to show how reading stimulates your imagination. Bad timing though, because it's around 10 PM by now. So most, if not all kids, were already in bed. Even Dutch kids. Well, they do seem to have a reputation for being too liberal in some aspects. In fact, you might expect an adult version to be on there at this time of night, possibly consisting of a woman falling in love with an alien vibrator, while telling the viewer that erotic books are for curious people like her. And then she'd go on to explore the Anais Nin section, and, well, ultimately the ideal version of this commercial will technically be illegal, possibly in violation of Geneva Convention, and would likely never air anywhere. Wow, what a culture shock. This last ad break looks so Japanese. It's almost as if you're watching primetime NTV in downtown Shizuoka Prefecture. I mean, Shizuoka Daiichi TV. Commercial TV in Japan kinda works like how ITV used to run. Coincidentally, of course, this is right when the Asian bubble burst.
Honderdduizenden rijden er inmiddels mee.
It even includes cherry blossoms in it. This whole ad just looks like a startup sequence from one of those Japanese regional commercial television stations I just mentioned, with all the CGI action. All it's missing is the transmitters and service list, you know, the location and the frequency number.
En genieten van de voordelen. De GDI-motor van Mitsubishi.
It even has Japanese people in the reflection of the car.
De direct ingespoten benzinemotor die minder benzine verbruikt. Nu ook leverbaar in de nieuwe Mitsubishi Space Star.
Until you realize that it ends with the car strolling down Dutch streets. I once believed that the first part of the ad was made by one of the non-Japanese Asian divisions, sent over to all the other divisions, and later slapped over local shots at the end.
GDI brengt je verder.
The callback to Jaws, the bump that was frequently repeated in that day and age, this break comes to an end. In these 5 minutes we saw just about everything. Open-air lunches, King Kong Godzilla hybrids with halitosis, plastic aliens commanding us to go to the library, and the Japanese motor company breaking its Japanese aesthetic with footage of one of its cars over Amsterdam or something. I'll return after Eurovision with a break from whoever won it, and for now I'll leave you with this. It's a stuff advert, but promoting the abstract concept of cable TV from around the same period as this ad break from the Dutch Cable Association. Goeienacht.
Lastig, als je geen keus hebt. Dat zal je met de kabel niet snel gebeuren. 1001 programma's, gewoon bij je thuis.